The girl took revenge when her family was defeated and harmed. In 2025, Ashes of Magnolia, set in Savannah, Georgia, widowed nurse Lillian Harper discovers her late husband Jackson Reed's role in a drug ring that killed her sister Evie. Revenge is ahead. The story begins. Everyone, please subscribe to my Sweet Revenge YouTube channel. Savannah, Georgia, draped itself in twilight, its live oaks heavy with Spanish moss that swayed like ghosts in the humid air. Forsyth Park's fountain murmured secrets, its water catching the blood-orange glow of a dying sun. Inside a creaking Victorian home on the park's edge, Lillian Harper, 38, stood frozen in her late husband's study, the air thick with dust and the weight of a year's grief. A widowed nurse, her dark hair streaked with premature gray, her hazel eyes shadowed by sleepless nights. Lillian was a woman hollowed out by loss. Her fingers, calloused from hospital shifts, trembled as she clutched a framed photo of Jackson Reed, her husband, his lawyer's smile frozen in time. A year ago, Jackson's car had skidded on a rain-slicked road, his life snuffed out in a scream of metal, leaving Lillian and their daughter, Sadie, 16, to navigate a world without his charm. But tonight, that charm felt like a lie, a veneer peeling away to reveal something rotten beneath. The study was a shrine to Jackson's legacy, mahogany shelves lined with law books, a brass lamp casting a sickly glow, the scent of old leather and cigar smoke clinging to the walls. Lillian had avoided this room, its memories too sharp, but Sadie's plea, "We need to sell his stuff, Mom," had driven her here. She moved like a trespasser, her sneakers silent on the Persian rug, her heart thudding a warning she couldn't name. The magnolia tree outside the window loomed, its creamy petals falling like ash, their sweet decay seeping through the cracked pane. Lillian's breath hitched, a flicker of unease stirring the grief that had settled in her bones. She opened a desk drawer, expecting files or pens, but found a locked steel box, its surface cold under her fingertips. Her pulse quickened, a nurse's instinct sensing danger. Jackson's keyring, tucked in a cigar box, held a small silver key that clicked the lock open with a sound like a gunshot in the quiet room. Inside was a ledger, its pages yellowed, filled with coded entries, dates, numbers, initials. Lillian's eyes scanned the lines, her mind racing to decipher the cryptic shorthand. Then she saw it. EH, 50K. Lot 47, March 15, 20. Her breath stopped. March 15, 2020, the day her sister, Evie, overdosed on fentanyl-laced pills. Her body found cold in a Tybee Island motel. Evie, 28, with her wild laugh and broken dreams, stolen by addiction. No, Lillian gasped, her voice a wound torn open, the ledger slipping to the floor with a thud. Her knees buckled, and she sank to the rug, her hands clawing at the pages as if they could rewrite the truth. The room spun, the lamp's light flickering like a failing pulse, the magnolia's scent now suffocating. A funeral wreath for her trust. Jackson, Savannah's golden son, the man who'd held her through Evie's funeral, had been complicit in her death. The ledger's entries, shipments, payoffs, a network of pain, painted him not as a lawyer but a dealer. His firm a front for an opioid ring flooding Georgia's veins. Lillian's chest heaved, rage and grief colliding like a storm over the Savannah River. She stumbled to her feet, the photo of Jackson crashing to the floor, its glass splintering like her heart. His smile mocked her, those warm brown eyes she'd loved now a mask for a monster. "How could you?" she whispered, her voice raw, trembling with betrayal. The house creaked, its old bones answering with silence, as if complicit in Jackson's lies. Her mind flashed to Sadie, asleep upstairs, her daughter's green eyes, so like Jackson's, unaware of the poison in their legacy. Lillian's hands shook as she gathered the ledger, its weight a promise of reckoning. The front door slammed, jolting her. Sadie's voice echoed from the hall, sharp with teenage defiance. "Mom, you in here? I'm starving." Lillian shoved the ledger into her sweater, her heart racing, the truth a burning coal against her chest. She stepped into the hallway, forcing a smile that felt like a lie. Sadie, in ripped jeans and a hoodie, leaned against the banister, her auburn hair falling over one shoulder. "You okay?" Sadie asked, her brow furrowing, sensing the shift in her mother's eyes. Lillian's throat tightened, the urge to confess warring with the need to protect. "Just cleaning up," she said, her voice brittle, the words tasting of ash. Sadie shrugged, heading to the kitchen, but Lillian lingered, her gaze drifting to the magnolia tree outside. Its branches scratched the window, a warning in their rhythm. As the city's ghosts whispered of secrets unearthed, Jackson's betrayal wasn't just personal, it was a thread in Savannah's dark tapestry. Woven by his mother, Margaret Reed, a socialite whose power loomed over the city like a storm cloud. Lillian's fingers tightened around the ledger, her nurse's resolve hardening into something fiercer. You took Evie, she murmured, her voice a vow to the empty room. But you won't take us. The night deepened, Savannah's squares cloaked in mist, the air heavy with the promise of rain. Lillian stood at the study window, the ledger hidden in a safe, her heart a furnace of grief and rage. The magnolia's petals fell, scattering like the ashes of her old life, as she stepped into the unknown, ready to burn the Reed's empire to the ground. Savannah's river street exhaled secrets, its cobblestones slick with evening mist, the Savannah River churning like a restless spirit beside the waterfront. The bar, a dive called the Rusty Anchor, crouched at the street's end, its neon sign flickering a sickly green, casting jagged shadows across the faces of dockworkers and drifters. Inside, the air was thick with bourbon, cigarette smoke, and the low hum of a jukebox crooning a mournful Hank Williams tune. Lillian Harper, 38, sat in a corner booth, her nurse's hands knotted in her lap, her hazel eyes darting to the door. Grief and rage had carved her face into sharp angles, her dark hair pulled into a tight bun, strands escaping like threads of her unraveling life. The ledger she'd found in Jackson Reed's study, a damning record of his opioid dealings, tied to her sister Evie's death, burned in her mind, a coal fueling her resolve. Savannah's ghosts seemed to lean closer, their whispers mingling with the river's murmur, as Lillian waited for a stranger who might hold the key to justice. Her fingers clutched a faded photo of Evie, its edges worn from years of mourning. Evie, 28 when she died, grinned in the image, her auburn curls wild, her blue eyes bright with a hope addiction later stole. Lillian's chest tightened, the memory of Evie's cold body in a Tybee Island motel a wound that never closed. Jackson, her late husband, Savannah's golden lawyer, had been complicit, his charm a mask for a dealer's greed. The magnolia tree outside her Forsyth Park home, its petals falling like ash, haunted her dreams, a symbol of the life she'd lost. She'd barely slept since finding the ledger, her nights spent pacing, her days dodging Sadie's questions. Her daughter, 16, with Jackson's green eyes and fiery spirit, sensed the shift but didn't know the truth, not yet. Lillian's heart ached at the thought of shattering Sadie's memory of her father. But silence was a betrayal of Evie. The bar door creaked, and Tessa Quinn strode in, cutting through the haze like a blade. At 34, Tessa was a force, auburn curls tumbling over a leather jacket, blue eyes sharp with the hunger of a hunter. Her podcast, Southern Shadows, was Savannah's guilty pleasure, dissecting the city's crimes with a voice that was both velvet and steel. She slid into the booth, her gaze locking onto Lillian's, assessing her like a witness on the stand. "You're Lillian Harper," Tessa said, her tone low, deliberate, as she set a small recorder on the table. "And you've got a story that could burn this city down." Lillian's breath hitched, her fingers tightening around Evie's photo. "You don't know the half of it," she said, her voice raw, a wound laid bare. Tessa leaned forward, the recorder's red light a tiny ember in the dim bar. "Then tell me, I got your email about Jackson Reed. You said he was dirty. How dirty?" Lillian's eyes flicked to the bar's grimy window, where the river's currents gleamed like oil under streetlights. Her pulse pounded, the weight of her decision pressing against her ribs. "He was dealing opioids," she said, her voice trembling but gaining strength, like a river breaking its banks. "Through his law firm, I found a ledger, shipments, payoffs, names. One batch killed my sister, Evie, 5 years ago." The words spilled out, each one a stone lifted from her chest, the truth a blade she'd kept sheathed too long. Tessa's eyes narrowed, her fingers pausing over the recorder. "Jesus," she murmured, her southern drawl softening the curse. "The Reeds are Savannah royalty. You're saying Jackson was their front man for a pharma cartel?" Lillian nodded, her throat tight, the memory of Jackson's smile, warm, disarming, clashing with the ledger's cold numbers. "He played me," she said, her voice cracking, "played us all. Evie trusted him, and he let her die." Tears burned her eyes, but she blinked them back, her nurse's resolve hardening into something fiercer. The bar's jukebox switched to a slow blues riff, its notes weaving through the smoke like a dirge. Tessa leaned back, her gaze piercing. This is bigger than one man. Lillian, the Reeds, Margaret, Jackson's mother, she's got half the city in her pocket. Judges, cops, the mayor, you go public, they'll bury you. Lillian's hands shook, but her voice was steel. I don't care. Evie's gone. I won't let them take more. Tessa's lips curved, not a smile but a spark of respect. You're braver than you look, she said, clicking off the recorder. But we need more than a ledger. Bank records, witnesses, proof that sticks. You in? Lillian met her gaze, the river's churn outside mirroring the storm in her heart. I'm in, she said, her words a vow, a pact sealed in the bar's smoky air. Tessa slid a burner phone across the table, its plastic cool under Lillian's fingers. Use this. No texts, no emails, calls only. They'll be watching you now. Lillian's stomach twisted, the reality of her choice sinking in. She thought of Sadie, asleep in their Victorian home, unaware of the war her mother was waging. What if they come for my daughter? She asked, her voice barely a whisper, fear creeping through her resolve. Tessa's eyes softened, but her tone was firm. Keep her close, and don't trust anyone, not even family. Margaret Reed plays dirty. The words landed like a stone, heavy with warning, as the bar's neon sign buzzed, its green light flickering like a failing pulse. Lillian stood, tucking Evie's photo into her purse, the burner phone await against her hip. When do we start? She asked, her voice steadier now, a nurse facing a crisis. Tessa's grin was a flash of defiance. Tonight, I'll dig into the Reeds' financials. You watch your back. She paused, her hand on Lillian's arm, her voice low. You're not alone, Lillian, not anymore. The words were a lifeline, fragile but real, pulling Lillian from the abyss of her grief. Outside, Savannah's night closed in, the river's currents hiding bodies and lies, its surface glinting under a crescent moon. Lillian walked the cobblestones, her sneakers slipping on the damp stone, the air heavy with salt and decay. The magnolia trees lining the street drooped, their petals scattering like ashes, a reminder of the ruin Jackson had left behind. Her mind raced, Evie's laugh, Jackson's lies, Sadie's defiance, Tessa's voice, a tapestry of pain and purpose. The city's ghosts seemed to follow, their whispers urging her forward. As the river churned, a witness to the alliance that would either save her or destroy her. Lillian reached her car, the Victorian home's silhouette looming across the park, its windows dark save for Sadie's room, where a faint light glowed. She gripped the steering wheel, her knuckles white, the burner phone a promise of war. For you, Evie, she whispered, her voice a spark in the night, ready to set Savannah ablaze. Savannah's historic district pulsed with whispers, its cobblestone streets and moss-draped oaks cloaking secrets older than the city itself. The air was thick with summer's weight, a humid shroud that clung to Lillian Harper's skin as she stood in her Forsyth Park home. The Victorians' warped floorboards creaking like a warning. At 38, Lillian was a specter of her former self, her dark hair streaked with gray, her hazel eyes bloodshot from sleepless nights haunted by the ledger she'd found in her late husband Jackson Reed's study. Its coded entries, linking him to an opioid ring that killed her sister Evie, had shattered her world, turning love to ash. The magnolia tree outside her window loomed, its creamy petals wilting in the heat, their decay a mirror to the rot in her heart. Lillian's hands trembled as she clutched her burner phone. Tessa Quinn's warning, they'll be watching you, echoing like a curse. Savannah's ghosts seemed to lean closer, their murmurs blending with the cicadas' drone, as Lillian braced for the fallout of her war. Tessa's podcast, Southern Shadows, had dropped its first episode on the Reeds, a bombshell naming Jackson's affair with Dr. Caroline Wells, a local physician supplying fentanyl-laced pills for his firm's cartel network. The episode, downloaded thousands of times overnight, set Savannah's elite ablaze with gossip. X-posts swirled, #Reed scandal trending alongside cruel memes of Lillian as a grieving widow turned conspiracy theorist. They're calling me crazy, Lillian muttered, pacing her kitchen, the linoleum cool under her bare feet. The scent of coffee, burnt from hours on the warmer, mingled with the magnolia's cloying sweetness seeping through the cracked window. Her daughter, Sadie, 16, slumped at the table, her auburn hair falling over her face, her green eyes, Jackson's eyes, flashing with defiance. Maybe they're right, Mom, Sadie snapped, her voice sharp as a blade. You're obsessed. Dad's dead, and you're digging up dirt like it'll bring Aunt Evie back. Lillian froze, her heart a fist in her chest. Sadie, you don't understand, she said, her voice low, trembling with the weight of truths she couldn't yet share. Your father wasn't who you think. Sadie's chair scraped back, her sneakers slamming the floor as she stood. Stop it, he loved us, you're just mad because he's gone. Her words cut deeper than the ledger's revelations. A betrayal of their bond. Lillian reached for her, but Sadie recoiled, her eyes brimming with tears. You're ruining everything, she hissed, storming upstairs, her door slamming with a force that rattled the house's old bones. Lillian sank into a chair, her hands covering her face, the room's shadows swallowing her. The magnolia's branches scratched the window, a clawing accusation, as guilt and rage warred within her. The phone buzzed, Tessa's name flashing. Lillian answered, her voice hoarse. They're circling. Tessa, Margaret Reed called this morning. She knows we're behind the podcast. Margaret, Jackson's mother, was Savannah's iron matriarch, her mansion a fortress of power. Tessa's voice crackled through the line. Fierce and unyielding. Good, let her squirm. I've got bank records tying Caroline Wells to offshore accounts. We drop the next episode tomorrow. Lillian's pulse quickened, her fingers tightening around the phone, the plastic warm against her palm. It's not just Margaret, she said, her voice breaking. Sadie's pulling away. She thinks I'm betraying her dad. Tessa's tone softened, a rare crack in her armor. She's a kid, Lillian. She'll understand when we nail them. Meet me tonight, River Street. Same bar. We're close. The rusty anchor was a dive, its air thick with sweat and secrets. The jukebox now crooning a mournful Patsy Cline ballad. Tessa sat in their booth, her laptop open, its screen casting a ghostly glow across her sharp features. Look at this, she said, sliding the laptop toward Lillian, revealing wire transfers from Jackson's firm to a shell company in the Caymans. Lillian's breath hitched, her nurse's hands steadying as she traced the numbers, each one a nail in Jackson's coffin. He was laundering millions, she whispered, her voice a mix of horror and resolve. Tessa nodded, her blue eyes blazing, and Margaret knew, she's the puppet master. Lillian, we take her down. The whole ring collapses. Lillian's heart pounded, the bar's dim light flickering like a failing pulse. The river outside churning with hidden currents. But the cost was mounting. Back home, Lillian found a note from Sadie, staying at Grandma Margaret's. Don't come for me. Panic seized her, the note crumpling in her fist. Margaret's estate, a sprawling mansion on Habersham Street, was a gilded cage, its gardens lush with magnolias that mocked Lillian's pain. She drove there, the city's squares blurring past, their gas lamps casting eerie halos. Margaret met her at the gate, her silver hair impeccable, her eyes like flint. You're tearing this family apart. Lillian, she said, her voice cold, venomous. Speak out again, and Sadie's trust fund, her future, disappears. Lillian's hands clenched, her voice a low growl. You don't scare me, Margaret. I know what you did. What Jackson did. Margaret's smile was a blade. Prove it, dear, and good luck keeping your daughter. The gate clanged shut, a prison door, as Lillian stood frozen, the night's heat pressing against her, the magnolia's scent choking her lungs. She drove back, Savannah's streets a maze of shadows, her mind a storm of fear and fury. At home, the Victorian felt emptier, its creaks a lament for Sadie's absence. Lillian sank to the kitchen floor, Evie's photo clutched to her chest, her sobs echoing in the dark. I'm doing this for you, she whispered, but doubt gnawed at her. Had she lost Sadie to save Evie's memory? The burner phone buzzed, Tessa's voice urgent. We've got Caroline's emails. Meet me tomorrow. We end this. Lillian wiped her tears, her resolve hardening like steel in a forge. The magnolia outside swayed, its petals falling like ash. As Savannah's ghosts watched, their whispers urging her toward a reckoning that might cost her everything. Savannah's Bonaventure Cemetery brooded under a moonless sky, its marble angels weeping in silence, their stone eyes fixed on the living who dared disturb their rest. The air was heavy with the scent of damp earth and decaying magnolias. The riverfront's marshy breath creeping through twisted oaks. Lillian Harper, 38, stood at the cemetery's edge, her nurse's hands clenched, her dark hair plastered to her sweat-damp forehead, her hazel eyes, bloodshot from sleepless nights, burned with a fury that rivaled the city's ghosts. The ledger she'd found in her late husband Jackson Reed's study, proof of his opioid dealings that killed her sister Evie, had driven her to this moment. A reckoning with the Reed family's iron grip on Savannah, her alliance with Tessa Quinn, the fierce podcaster behind Southern Shadows, had exposed Jackson's affair with Dr. Caroline Wells and his firm's cartel ties. But the cost was tearing Lillian apart. Her daughter, Sadie, 16, had fled to Margaret Reed's mansion, seduced by wealth and lies, leaving Lillian to face the fire alone. The magnolia trees loomed, their petals falling like ash, a requiem for the life she'd lost. The Reed Charity Ball, held in a riverfront mansion overlooking the Savannah River, was a glittering facade, its chandeliers casting diamonds of light across silk gowns and tailored suits. Lillian slipped through the crowd, her navy dress clinging to her trembling frame, her burner phone hidden in her clutch. Tessa's latest evidence, a trove of Caroline's emails, burning in her mind. The mansion's oak-paneled walls gleamed, but the air was thick with deceit. The river's churn outside a restless witness. Tessa, 34, stood beside her, her auburn curls swept up, her blue eyes sharp with defiance. "This is it, Lillian," she whispered, her voice a blade. "We call out Margaret now. In front of Savannah's elite. They can't ignore us." Lillian's heart pounded, her throat dry as she nodded, her gaze scanning for Sadie, praying her daughter was here. Safe but misguided, the magnolia's scent wafted through an open window, cloying and cruel, a reminder of Jackson's betrayal. Margaret Reed, 60, held court near the grand staircase, her silver hair impeccable, her black gown a shroud of power. Her eyes, like flint, met Lillian's across the room, a silent warning that chilled her blood. Lillian's hands shook, but Tessa's grip on her arm was steel. "Ready?" Tessa asked, her recorder tucked in her purse, its red light a promise of truth. Lillian swallowed, her voice barely a whisper. "For Evie." They moved forward, the crowd parting like a sea before a storm, phones rising to capture the drama Savannah craved. The string quartet's music faltered as Tessa's voice boomed, cutting through the chatter. "Ladies and gentlemen, your hosts, the Reeds, have a secret." The room hushed, eyes wide, as Tessa raised her phone, playing a recorded email from Caroline, "Jackson. The cartel's pressing for more shipments. Margaret's cut is secured." Gasps rippled, glasses clinking as they hit the floor. Lillian stepped forward, her voice raw, trembling with years of grief. "My husband, Jackson Reed, fueled Savannah's opioid crisis. He killed my sister, Evie, and Margaret covered it up." Her words echoed, a thunderclap in the gilded hall. Phones flashing like lightning. Margaret's face paled, but her voice was ice. "You're delusional, Lillian. A grieving widow spinning lies to tarnish our name." The crowd murmured, torn between shock and loyalty to the Reeds. Lillian's eyes found Sadie, standing by Margaret, her green eyes wide, her auburn hair catching the light. "Sadie, please," Lillian pleaded, her voice breaking. "You know me. I'm telling the truth." Sadie's lips trembled, but Margaret's hand on her shoulder tightened. A silent command. "She's lying, Grandma, right?" Sadie asked, her voice small, desperate. Margaret's smile was a viper's. "Of course, darling." Before Lillian could speak, a scream pierced the air, followed by the acrid stench of smoke. Flames erupted from the mansion's rear, licking the oak walls, their orange tongues devouring curtains. Panic erupted, guests shoving toward the exits, their screams drowning the quartet's final notes. Lillian coughed, her eyes stinging, as she grabbed Tessa's arm. "We have to get out," she shouted, her voice hoarse, the heat pressing against her skin. Tessa stumbled, her recorder slipping, but Lillian pulled her through the chaos, their shoes slipping on spilled champagne. The fire roared, unnatural in its speed, a deliberate act, Margaret's ally, silencing their truth. Lillian's heart seized as she scanned for Sadie, but the smoke was a veil. The river's glint outside mocking her desperation. They burst onto the lawn, the mansion ablaze, its windows glowing like hell's eyes. Fire trucks wailed in the distance, their sirens a belated requiem. Lillian's knees buckled, her hands clawing the grass, her lungs burning. "Sadie," she screamed, her voice raw, but Tessa's grip held her back. "She's with Margaret," Tessa gasped, her face smudged with soot. "She's safe, Lillian, but the evidence, Caroline's emails, it's gone." Lillian's sob tore free, the loss a blade in her gut. The burner phone, their last proof, had melted in the fire. its plastic shell a ruin in her clutch. The crowd milled, phones still recording, X already buzzing with hashtag #ReadFire. But the truth was ashes now. A text buzzed on Lillian's personal phone. From Sadie. I'm at Grandma's. Don't come. The words were a noose. Tightening around Lillian's heart, she staggered to her car. The marshes whispers mocking her failure. The river's currents hiding the reed's sins. Tessa followed, her voice urgent. We're not done. Lillian, I've got backups. Witnesses. We'll hit them again. But Lillian's eyes were distant. Fixed on the burning mansion. Its flames reflecting Jackson's betrayal, his affair. His lies. His poison that stole Evie and now Sadie. I've lost her, she whispered, her voice a broken thing. The magnolia's ashes falling like snow in her mind. At home, the Victorian was a tomb. Its creaks a lament for Sadie's absence. Lillian sank to the kitchen floor. Evie's photo clutched to her chest. Her sobs echoing in the dark. The ledger, hidden in a safe, was all she had left. But it wasn't enough to bring Sadie back. What have I done? She moaned. Her voice a plea to the ghosts that haunted her. The magnolia outside swayed, its branches scratching the window like claws. As Savannah's night closed in, the fire of her vengeance threatening to consume all she loved. Savannah awoke under a golden dawn. Its historic squares bathed in light that softened the city's ghosts. Their whispers hushed beneath the rustle of live oaks. Lillian Harper, 38, sat in a pew at St. John's Cathedral. The stained glass windows casting jeweled patterns across her worn hands. Her dark hair loose, streaked with gray like the moss outside. Her hazel eyes, once burning with vengeance, were quiet now, tracing the altar's flicker of votive candles. The air carried the scent of polished wood and frankincense, a balm to the wounds that scarred her soul. The ledger she'd found months ago, proof of her late husband Jackson Reed's opioid dealings, tied to her sister Evie's death, had fueled a war that consumed her. Her alliance with Tessa Quinn, the fierce podcaster of Southern Shadows, had exposed the Reed family's cartel ties. But the cost was devastating. A fire at their gala, the loss of her daughter Sadie's trust, and a brush with her own unraveling. The magnolia trees outside, their petals once falling like ash, now gleamed with dew, a tentative promise of renewal in Savannah's haunted embrace. Lillian's fingers traced the pew's worn edge, her heart heavy with the memory of the mansion fire, its flames swallowing evidence and nearly her hope. Margaret Reed, Jackson's mother, had been arrested after Tessa's final podcast episode. A searing expose backed by recovered bank records and a whistleblower from Dr. Caroline Wells' clinic. The episode, downloaded millions of times, trended on X as hashtag Reed downfall. Savannah's elite reeling as Margaret's empire crumbled. But Lillian's victory was hollow. Sadie, 16, had fled to Margaret's mansion, seduced by wealth and lies, leaving Lillian alone in their Forsyth Park home. Its creaks a lament for their fractured bond. The magnolia's scent, once suffocating, now lingered faintly, a reminder of the pain she'd carried and the peace she sought. The cathedral door creaked, and Sadie stepped inside, her auburn hair catching the morning light. Her green eyes, Jackson's eyes, brimming with tears. Lillian's breath caught, her hands trembling as she stood, the pew creaking under her weight. Sadie, she whispered, her voice a fragile thread. Fear and hope colliding. Sadie hesitated, her sneakers scuffing the stone floor, her hoodie dwarfing her frame. I'm sorry, Mom, she said, her voice small, breaking. I didn't know about Dad. About everything. Lillian crossed the aisle, her heart pounding, and pulled Sadie into her arms. Their embrace a lifeline across the chasm of their pain. You're here now, Lillian murmured, her tears soaking Sadie's hair. The cathedral's quiet wrapping them in grace. That's all that matters. Sadie's sobs shook her, her words spilling out. Grandma said you were lying. That you wanted to ruin us. But I heard the podcast. Mom, I know what Dad did. Lillian's chest tightened, the weight of Sadie's knowledge a new wound. But her daughter's warmth anchored her. He loved you, Sadie, she said, her voice steady despite the ache. But he made choices that hurt people. I had to make it right. For Evie. Sadie pulled back, her eyes searching Lillian's, a flicker of understanding dawning. I miss her too, she whispered, and Lillian nodded, their shared grief a bridge mending what was broken. Outside, Savannah stirred, its gas lamps dimming as the sun climbed, the river's currents glinting like polished silver. Lillian and Sadie walked to Bonaventure Cemetery. the path lined with oaks that whispered of forgiveness. Evie's grave, a simple stone beneath a magnolia, stood quiet, its surface cool under Lillian's fingers as she knelt. I did it, Evie, she said, her voice soft, a vow fulfilled. They can't hurt anyone else. Sadie's hand found hers, their fingers entwining, the magnolia's petals falling gently now. No longer ash but a soft farewell. Lillian's heart, scarred by Jackson's betrayal, his affair, his lies, his poison, began to beat with something new, not rage, but resolve to heal. Back in their Victorian home, the air was lighter, the creaks softer, as if the house itself exhaled. Tessa called, her voice crackling through the burner phone. Now a relic of their war. Margaret's pleading guilty, Tessa said, her tone triumphant but tinged with exhaustion. You did it, Lillian. Savannah's free. Lillian's lips curved, a faint smile, her gaze on Sadie, who was flipping through Evie's old photo album. Her laughter a spark of joy. We did it, Lillian corrected, her voice warm, grateful. But I'm done fighting. Tessa, it's time to live. Tessa's laugh was a burst of light. About damn time. Call me when you're ready to guest on the podcast. Lillian chuckled, the sound foreign but welcome. As she hung up, the phone slipping into a drawer. Its purpose served. The kitchen table held a new note from Sadie. Can we make pancakes tomorrow? Like old times? Lillian's eyes stung, the memory of Evie teaching Sadie to flip pancakes flooding back. A moment untainted by loss. She wrote back, yes, sweetheart, like old times. The magnolia outside swayed, its branches catching the dawn's glow. Its scent no longer a funeral wreath but a promise of mornings yet to come. Lillian stepped onto the porch. Savannah's squares unfolding before her, their gas lamps fading as the city woke. A street musician strummed a hopeful chord, the notes floating like petals on the breeze. And Lillian breathed deeply, her lungs filling with air untainted by vengeance. She walked toward Forsyth Park, the fountains murmur a gentle hymn, the oaks standing sentinel over her new beginning. The ghosts of Savannah, Evie, Jackson, the pain of her past, lingered, but their whispers were soft now, guiding rather than haunting. Lillian's sneakers crunched on the gravel, her heart lighter, her steps sure. She didn't know what lay ahead, but for the first time, she trusted herself to face it. With Sadie by her side, the magnolias don a canvas for healing, not ruin. If you find the story interesting, please like and share this video and leave a comment with your opinion. Don't forget to subscribe to Sweet Revenge and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any new videos.